But if you say, well, I'll play, you know, a top tier character, like in the top 5 to 7, and I'll have Sub-Zero on the side. So Sub-Zero will almost never come out. But there are times when you may need him as a side character, and then you pull him out and he'll be great because he serves his purpose.
Right.
I think him outside of that, he's not really made for anything as a counter character. So I was a little disappointed because he just... It's like... Even though he was whatever in 9 toward the bottom, he was still able to compete well above his tier placement.
Right.
And it's like... But in theory, if you made a tier list, he would be toward the bottom of it. So I was disappointed because, you know, it would be like a Shiva player, you know, like we have this player, Jeremiah, played Shiva. Oh, I love Shiva. I'm Jeremiah. You know, however he's very happy all the time.
Right.
And like MK11, Ed Boon's like, and the newest character we announce is Shiva. You know, Jeremiah would be like, oh, wow, I love Shiva.
Right.
They can't possibly make her any worse. And then they do, right? So that's how I feel about Sub-Zero. I was like, they can't make him any worse, and then they did.
Just
so, you know.
Okay. Yeah, very true. So, and I know I actually saw. I wanted to ask this because I know I saw like a thread on this on TYM. So what? Do you are you a fan of Injustice 2 being like, you know, using legacy controls? Would you like to see that in the next Mortal Kombat? And again, like this is super early off, but you know.
Fuck no! I don't want to see anything legacy about MKX. Fuck no!
So brand new game.
If you really want to stop Sonic Fox from winning, go back to the MK9 formula, and that will fix a lot of it.
Okay.
Can't jump, can't dash, can't 50-50. Take the 50-50 out of the game. Don't let anybody jump ever. See what happens.
Okay.
Some people will say that's a terrible game. You have to use footsies and defense. Who wants that? You know. So.
Okay. So not a fan of the legacy stuff. Okay.
So Tom, let me stop you for a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Tom, can you talk a little bit about how excited you are and what you plan to do when Sub-Zero comes out? What is the first thing that you want to do?
The first thing I want to do is mirror match every Sub-Zero player that thought they could actually compete against me, and being like, they'll be like, all Tom does is do this, and you don't have an option to get around it. Not my problem. And then I want to grind a lot of matchups. Like, you know, I don't. He's not an Injustice character. So, you know, to say, well, you know, Sub-Zero, you should know all the matchups in the game is retarded thought. So I want to play a lot of Black Adam's, Atrocitus, just to kind of test some of the theories I have out. You know, and pretty much play a lot in a lot of matchups. It's really the first thing I really want to do. Kind of decide, you know, I want to bring him to Summer Jam. I assume he'll be legal there. I just have a lot that I want to work on with him. You know, not really sure who I want to pick for what particular matchup. I like the pace of the game, and before I want to bring this up, right now. Pig, I'm glad you're on this call. Remember I had a conversation with you to NEC, and you said, go to NEC and place top 8, and only a moron will try to discredit you in this game in MK9. Remember that?
Okay, yep.
Crimson Shadow is that moron, because he says NEC doesn't count that much, but the tournaments I didn't place top 8 at, those count. So that guy is the moron. You know what his logic was to me on the phone was? But look at some of those guys that made top 8. So because there were upsets and the guys he felt that should have all been there didn't make it there, shouldn't count as much. Just like saying, well, I don't know who won the NBA playoffs because there was an upset, so take those fucking rings. You know? No, Crimson can't blow me up because Crimson's motto is the same as everybody else's. What he says counts, and what I say doesn't count. So it's retarded logic. But I'm excited for it because it's going to be more like the pace of play that I like with Sub-Zero. And I'm just kind of curious to kind of check some things out, like, you know, how's his trait going to work? What can he special? The clone is a trait. It's not a command. It's not an actual special. What can he cancel off of? How safe of it? I swear he had some kick string that wasn't the mid, low, mid string. He had another one as well. What is that string? Does he have any strings that we haven't seen? They didn't show everything in the trailer,
Right.
So I'm just kind of curious, like what are all his normals now?
Crimson just said, "Don't make me let Pig. All right, don't let Pig add me to the call and blow you up." What's he talking about?
Well, I had a conversation with him, and Crimson Shadow was talking about something like an MK9. I said, well, I didn't use Sub-Zero at both Evos, my fault, so I live with regret, but I didn't get it done, so it's my fault. But he was trying to say that I actually was less consistent in 2012 than I was in 2011, and I was like, actually, I went to less tournaments in 2012. I was actually just as consistent, but as a Sub-Zero player, if you go to 3 majors, you probably place top 8 at one of them, and then I'm getting like 2 9s. If you go to like 10 tournaments, you'll probably only place top 8 at 5 or 6. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's just the road of the Sub-Zero play. That's the bet I made for myself, but no excuses. But Pig, how many of the top players can actually make 60% of their top 8s? That would put me in the number 11 to 13 spot, right, of the game. I have a lot of top 8s in the game, and I was more consistent than most players. I mean, Crimson will say, well, what about this tournament, that tournament? That's just the road of Sub-Zero. So if you only make 5 majors, you're probably going to end up with 2 top 8s. That's just the way it is. That's just how Sub-Zero works. It doesn't mean you fell off. It doesn't mean, but that's the road of playing those type of characters. And I don't make any excuses for it. I wasn't able to get it done in those instances, but that's why I'm not considered number 1 or number 5. That's just the way it is. That's the road I chose, and I have to live with the results. But it doesn't mean that I fell off or couldn't compete as much anymore. His whole argument was, like I always said, and you remember, I went to a Chicago tournament to beat a specific high-profile player, right, just to prove I could still compete, right? And I delivered on that. With a character, there was the debate in the Kenshi Katana matchup, and I think I put the nail on the coffin on that debate. And so I proved I could still compete, but it wasn't a major. So then I went to NEC, and Crim says, well, that doesn't really prove you can still compete with the best players. And I'm like, I went to a tournament with 99% of the MLG top 8 placers, and I placed top 8. What did that prove? He goes, maybe it just proves you had a good day, or they had a bad day, whatever kind of garbage. But if I lost, of course, it proves that I can't compete, So a win doesn't prove anything. Lose proves you can't compete. So I don't want to get into MK9 nonsense, because I certainly wasn't a top, 3, 5, 7 player or anything like that. So, I would be just outside the top 10. So,
I'm looking at Crimson in the chat.
So, but I'm definitely just outside the top 10. I don't think you can argue against that. I'm definitely outside the top 10. But,
but for the rest,
I want to
get
into MKX.
Wait,
No,
don't talk about MKX. Talk about what you're going to do with Sub-Zero when he comes out July 11th. Where's your mind at? What's your whole thinking?
Right.
My whole thinking is, and I brought it up on my stream. You ever seen that movie,
The Good, the
Freddy
Bad,
versus Jason? Remember the movie Freddy versus Jason? Everybody saw that.
Yes,
movie,
dude.
Right?
Yeah.
Right, come on. Jason was totally fucked, man.
Good stuff, Jason.
Yeah, dude, he was totally.
Hey, Jason, good stuff. Jason, good stuff. Tom, good stuff.
Good stuff,
Tom. Tom, say good stuff. It'll make you feel better. Good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, good stuff, chat. Chat, good stuff. Say good stuff to us. Good stuff. That's it. We're sharing the good stuff. All right, go ahead.
So remember how the movie started out? They were like, everybody forgot about who Freddy was, and nobody gave a shit for him,
yeah.
Right? You fucking young kids don't even know about the Legend of My Sub-Zero. But I'm going to find something to make you fucking remember. And you will remember on July 11th. Oh, my gosh. It's going to be pretty good. There's a lot of people that I want to play just in matchup-wise. It'll just be good. It'll be a great learning experience for me, them. It'll be good. It'll be very, very good. Sub-Zero, for me, will just always be better than, like, Aquaman. I mean, they can't make him any worse than I made him in MKX. I mean, you can't make him any worse. It's almost impossible to make him worse. Like, if they would have said, Like if the great Nick Nicastro were to say, you know what I think? All of his moves need to be unsafe. All of his strength should be minus 1,000. All of his cancels should be punishable. It still wouldn't be worse than MKX. It would be exactly the same. So they can't make him any worse. So, that's it.
Okay.
The competition, that's actually false. The competition is more difficult than it used to be. It's actually a pretty big lie, to be honest with you. You see lots of videos that they say the games are actually easier now than they ever were. So in reality, when the games were harder, it was probably harder to win. But it doesn't matter. That's today's game. You know, they make everything more accessible, which gives us a platform.
Are you a fan of that? Are you a fan of the more, you know, making a game more accessible for, I don't know, wider audience, etc.? Like, are you a fan of that? Or are you a fan of the old school, you know, if it's hard, you got to learn your stuff, etc.?
I think the difference is a lot of old school games, not that they were harder and easier. All that easier means is they made offense more accessible. They made it easier for the player to break down someone's defense. They made it easier for them to get in. And when they get in, they made it easier for someone to get damaged. That's basically what they mean.